Hey, audit friends and family. I got a question for you. Have your clients ever lied to you? And let's double down on that. If so, how'd you know? And if you did know, do you know why they did it? All right, well, buckle up because today we're going to talk about lies. 5 reasons internal audit clients lie. Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome to Audit Bites, the podcast that helps auditors become awesome. Join us for bite-sized info and education to excel in your auditing career.
All right, my friends, you've heard the question that I asked. Have your clients ever lied to you? And if so, how did you know? And if you did know, why in the world did they do it? Like why in the world would a client actually lie to you? That's what I'm wondering. You ever wonder the same thing? Now, my man Clarence is here. Clarence says, "Greetings from Baltimore." Clarence, have you ever had a client lie to you? And if so, what did they lie about? How grand was it? Because today, let me tell you all a story about a time a client lied to me. And this one, you might want to just sit up in your chair and buckle up because I'm going to take you all on a real crazy ride. Okay, so listen, I once had a client who thought he could, well, I guess kind of outwit us with a tale that's so grand this thing deserved an Oscar. So I was sitting in this small, cluttered office space that kind of smelled like old coffee and probably a little hint of desperation too, with, let's call him Mr. John, not his real name, Smith. He was the CFO of this mid-sized manufacturing company. And I walked into his office after looking at some things and I said, "Mr. Smith, I need a moment. I noticed a discrepancy in some of your reporting." He looked at me. He said, "Okay, go on." And I said, "Well, the amount itself is not necessarily significant, but it's surrounding your petty cash. And that just kind of doesn't make sense because our petty cash should be there for like emergencies when we actually need it." So now let me give you a visual of Mr. Smith. He was let's say a rotund gentleman. Picture the penguin from Batman. And he had on well, this toupee that wasn't as inconspicuous as he thought it was. And he would always sit in his big chair. And he had this huge belly. And when he sat back, it just kind of plopped out. And so when I asked him about the petty cash, he leaned back in his chair, pat his belly like that, and let out this laugh that sounded like an evil villain in a DC or Marvel movie. And he looked at me and he said, "Oh, that. Let me tell you about that. It's the darndest thing and you wouldn't believe it." And so now at this point, we've heard some crazy things in our profession. So I kind of raised my eyebrow like The Rock. And I said, "Okay, really try me." And he started off, "Well," now for those of you who know me, you know how I feel when people start sentences with "well." Nothing good is going to follow after that. So he said, "Well, we have a squirrel problem." And so I looked at him and I said, "Squirrel?" He said, "Yes, squirrels." He went on to say that somehow they have a habit of stealing money from the petty cash box, and he called them little bandits. Now, I'm sitting here trying to keep a straight face, but I just wanted to make sure that what I was hearing was correct. So I looked at him and I said, "So you're telling me that a group of squirrels broke into the office, opened the petty cash box, and made off with several $100,000. So now Mr. Smith then turns and looks at me while nodding vigorously. He said, "Exactly." And he said it with such conviction. He went on to call them clever little critters. Now, at this point, I just couldn't resist. I try not to be a smart butt, but at this point, I was like, this is odd. So I asked him, did they leave a thank you note? Perhaps an invoice, an IOU, anything? And so he let out that evil chuckle again, and he said, well, listen, Robert, they aren't that polite, but we have set up traps, and we should have those furry felons caught by the end of the day. So now I went back over to my desk, a little frustrated, but also a little amused because I'd never heard anything that creative before. And I just wrote down in my work papers, squirrels. You see, that was my reminder to myself to go back and follow up on this thing. So then I went back to him and I said, okay, well, until you catch these furry felons, I'm going to need some more documentation over these supposed thefts. And so then I started asking for more documentation. The day went on, and after I left his office, I couldn't help but chuckle to myself because I've heard a lot of creative things in my career, but this was a new one. I had never, ever, ever heard anything like this before in my entire life. So let me ask you all, my friends, what is the craziest lie you've ever had a client tell you all? And while you guys are mulling over that, let's go back to the audience. I asked Clarence earlier, do clients ever lie to you? Clarence said yes, all the time. All the time, Clarence. Man, you might need to get some new clients if they're lying all the time. But Marsha says liars are repeat offenders. You know what? You're right. You're 100% right. Oh, Clarence said they lie about stupid stuff. Okay. Yeah. What kind of stupid stuff, though? I would be afraid of you, man. Shafundu, my man. Good to see you, Shafundu. What kind of crazy lies have audit clients told you? Now, Clarence, you are on LinkedIn and YouTube. You just kind of bouncing back and forth. But Marsha, you know what? You need to have your own comedy show. Marsha said that the squirrel was a member of his staff. Wait a minute, hold on. He or a member of his staff is the squirrel. Okay, never mind. I'm sorry. I read that wrong. You're right, Marsha. It's either him or a member of his staff that was the squirrel. I read that completely wrong. Although it was pretty funny the way that I had initially read it. So now, let's get back to the question that I asked earlier for you all, and that is, has a client ever lied to you? Okay, we've determined that most of you have said yes. You've had clients that have lied to you. And according to Clarence, they lie all the time. So let's talk about our agenda for today. I got three things that we're going to talk about today. First, we're going to define exactly what a lie is. We're going to define exactly what a lie is. And second, what we're going to do is we're going to discuss the 12 types of lies. Now, there are a few more than just these 12, but man, I had to cut it off somewhere, right? And the third thing we're going to do is discuss 5 reasons that your audit clients lie. So, who's ready to get started? Who is ready to get started with me? Because we're going to talk about what in the world is a lie. Now, various people may come up with some quirky and crazy definitions of what a lie is, but at the top of the house, a lie is just simply a deliberate false statement or representation made with some intention to deceive someone. And I think we can probably all agree on this definition, but a lie takes various forms. It could be verbal, it could be written messages, or it could be your actions that mislead other people about the truth. And lies can range from minor untruths to significant fabrications. but they often arise in various contexts, including personal relationships when your friends and family lie to you or on you, social situations, and also in legal matters. But at the top of the house, a lie is just a deliberate or false statement or representation made with the intention to deceive someone. Now, Marcia is saying that a lie is something you would want someone to believe, which is a false statement said with conviction. You ever notice that the best liars, they have the most convicted faces? Remember good old Bill Clinton? I did not have. Okay, I'm not going to even go down that road, but you all get it. You all have seen this stuff. You understand it. Oh, Don, hey, it's good to see you. Don says I'm like the Snoop Dogg of the highest level of the audit industry. She says she truly believes that I'm such a talented podcaster and she thanks me for this. Now, that, my friend, you know what? We need to catch up. We need to catch up. You know, I need to see how you're doing. Black Bill? Marsha, you wrong for that. You know what? We're going to keep right on going. I'm going to pretend like I didn't see that. You know what? My next question for you all is, though, can you spot a liar if you see one, though? Can you spot a liar if you see one? Because often it's hard to spot. Liars become so good at what they do over time. With practice, it becomes even more difficult to actually spot the liar. So, could you really spot a liar if they were in front of you? That's the one thing I really liked about Pinocchio. Every time he lied, his nose would grow. But liars in the real world, they have some tales to let you know that they're lying, but it's always hard to spot. Thankfully, we're not focusing on that today. But let's talk about the 12 types of liars. The 12 types of liars. Now, look, in my research, I actually found about 20, I think, but we're only going to be here for about an hour, and I could not go through 20 and then still give the 5 reasons clients lie to you. So let's just start with the first one. The first type of lie is just a little old white lie. We're all used to seeing those, right? They're seemingly harmless lies, and they're usually done to avoid minor conflicts or to hurt someone's feelings. Let's give a good example of a white lie. Think about a manager who tells an employee that their idea was great in efforts to try and encourage them, but really the idea was crap. This type of lie is commonly discussed in workplace psychology and management literature. I would recommend reading the book, The Truth About Lies in the Workplace. You will see all types of lies, and some of them you will be able to relate to, and some of them you will think are just as far-fetched as the squirrel story that I told earlier. But when auditors encounter little white lies, the repercussions are vast. It could lead us to overlook certain areas, resulting in potential risk being unaddressed. Now, our next type of lie is, well, just fabrications, completely made up stories or data, like falsifying reports or creating fictitious achievements on your resume, which is what Jeffrey Archer did in 2006. You see, he was found to have fabricated details on his CV to secure executive positions. And if you don't know who he is, he was a British author and politician. He was born in 1940 and he served as a member of parliament and later as deputy chairman of the Conservative Party. Now, he gained prominence because of his novels that he had written, and many of them had become bestsellers. But then they found out that he lied on his resume. It got a little worse for him. Back to Marsha's point, they continuously lie. You see, in 1987, it was found that he lied about his academic credentials and other things as well. Now, for auditors, when employees fabricate information to us or in reports or documents, it can lead to incorrect audit conclusions and or flawed business decisions, therefore increasing our risk within organizations. Now, our next type of lie, This is just exaggerations. And we all had that one friend that exaggerated all the time. You'd ask them questions about where they'd been on the weekend, and all of a sudden they flew to Dubai and came back all in one weekend. Sounds a little sketchy, right? But exaggerations are just stretching the truth about one's contributions, skills, or success to appear more competent or more valuable. Now, didn't we see this with Enron when they exaggerated the company's profits and concealed debts? For those of you who don't know, Enron Corporation was founded in 1985 and was a major energy company that collapsed in 2007 due to widespread fraud. As a matter of fact, we have the collapse of Enron to thank for the Sarbanes-Oxley Act that we have today. Now, Enron was also responsible for the demise of Arthur Andersen, which was one of the big eight, 765, and then there were four large accounting firms. Anybody remember Enron? I remember when it happened. It was real crazy. There were allegations that Arthur Andersen, they were in offices shredding documentation. See, when you lie, you oftentimes have to do things to cover up your lie. And I often tell people, I'm too stupid to lie because you got to remember all the lies that you told. So I'm a little too stupid to lie because I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning, much less a lie that I may have told 5 years ago. Now, your next type of lie are just omissions, leaving out critical information that could negatively impact oneself or others. If you all remember the Flint water crisis in 2014, officials omitted critical information about lead contamination after switching the water source that they supplied the citizens. Residents were not informed, and this led to, well, widespread exposure to different types of health risks. So, as auditors, when we face omissions, well, we might miss significant issues if critical information is withheld by our audit clients. No one likes omissions, but sometimes we have unintentional omission. Sometimes we don't ask the right questions. Sometimes we don't follow up enough, and then we blame the clients that because we didn't ask appropriate or good enough questions. And so here's the thing, if you have a problem getting the information that you need from your audit clients, I'm going to recommend a really good book to you. It's called Ask Better Questions, Get Better Answers, Perform Better Audits, and it was written by yours truly. It's one of the only and the best book on the market about how to ask questions while auditing. Now, some people listening today may have read it. If you've read it, drop into the chat. What were your thoughts on it? Was it good? Did you really, really like it? Or you can go to Amazon and check out some of the stellar reviews of the book. Now, Marsha is saying liars have the best memory because they have to remember each lie if caught in a compromising position or a convo. Look, like I just said, I don't remember what I had for breakfast this morning, so I kind of make a really bad liar. But I am a pretty good storyteller, especially when the story is true. That squirrel story I told earlier, if you are just joining us in this podcast, go back to the beginning. Listen to the story I told you about an audit client of mine that I had. Mind blowing. True stuff, though. You can't really make this up. Now, type of lie, our next type of lie is denials. Denials. Some people just deny stuff, refusing to admit an action or a mistake even when evidence exists. You guys remember the Deepwater Horizon oil spill that happened in 2010? And remember how BP initially denied the impact that it was having? The then CEO, Tony Hayward, initially downplayed the seriousness of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. Now, his statements reflected a reluctance to acknowledge the full impact of the disaster, which ultimately led to environmental damage and significant repercussions for his company. So now, as auditors, denials can mislead auditors about the severity of issues. So when you sense that people are lying and they're denying it, you got to keep collecting the evidence to figure out what the absolute truth is. Remember, there is only one truth. There's no my truth or your truth. For real. Your truth and my truth is just my version of the truth based on the information that I have, and your version of the truth based on the information that you have. So our job is to get to the with the capital THE truth. Now we got a LinkedIn user here. Oh, and I don't know who this is saying great book, useful insights and advice. Again, if you missed what we're talking about here, we're talking about the best selling book, Ask Better Questions, Get Better Answers, Perform Better Audits, written by yours truly. Now, Shafundu, man, thank you, man. Shafundu says, one of my best books. My team loves it too. You bought the book for your whole team, man. I appreciate you, man. I really appreciate that. You got me a little tongue tied here. I really do appreciate that, man. Um, it's not often that I'm thrown off, but you just threw me off. So our next type of lie, misleading statements. Just misleading statements. Now, providing information that leads or others to a false conclusion without directly lying. That's pretty much a misleading statement. If you remember the Volkswagen emissions scandal, they had a lot of misleading statements. So, for those of you who don't know, in the US, in some states, there's a limit to the amount of toxic fumes that a car can release in the air. And car manufacturers are bound by certain standards to make sure that their vehicles don't release a certain amount, above a certain amount of toxic fumes. Well, Volkswagen was accused of using what they call a defeat device to cheat the emissions test. So they basically lied, and when it was discovered, well, they had some misleading information about the integrity of the emissions within their vehicles. Now, for us as auditors, misleading statements can lead auditors to incorrect conclusions, potentially allowing unethical practices to continue unchecked in organizations. So, as you can see, lies are dangerous and detrimental, especially to auditors. And right now, we're talking about the 12 types of lies. Number 7 here is false promises. You see, making false commitments or promises without the intention or the ability to follow through. That is a false promise. Often it's done to appease superiors or colleagues or investors or stakeholders, but it is only temporary. A good example of this is Elizabeth Holmes from Theranos. She made false promises about the capabilities of her company's blood testing technology. And now, for us as auditors, false promises can result in auditors being misled about the viability of products or technologies or business strategies or risk mitigation strategies. And ultimately, this could lead us to some faulty assessments. Some faulty assessments. Now, number 8 on our list is just gossip, spreading false or exaggerated information about colleagues. Often it's done to undermine their reputation or to influence office politics. Now, we all know that gossip can create a toxic work environment, and it can lead auditors to question the integrity of the sources of information or the business itself. But ultimately, gossip complicates your work as an auditor. So our next one is just blatant outright lies. I'm not sure if I actually need to say any more. Blatant outright lies. Number 10 is double speak. Let's talk about double speak for a minute, because double speak is using ambiguous or euphemistic language to obscure the truth and to mislead others about the true nature of a situation or a decision. Let's give a good example of double speak. And many of you will be able to relate to this. Think about a company that refers to layoffs as right sizing to imply that it's a positive adjustment rather than just kind of the loss of jobs. That's a good example of double speak, but double speak for auditors can obscure the true nature of business decisions, making it difficult for us to assess the real impact on the organization and on its employees. And we're almost at number 12. We're almost there with number 11, half truths. Listen, here's what I'm going to say about half truths. A half truth is still a whole lie. I know I've got a fancy definition sitting up here on the screen, but a half truth is still a whole doggone lie. So auditors have to look out for half truths. And rounding it off at number 12, deflection is our 12th type of lie. And deflection is simply shifting blame or responsibility onto others to avoid accountability for one's own actions or mistakes. We know a lot of people who deflect. You ask them a simple question, they tell you to look over here. You ask a follow up question, they tell you to look over there. So, those are our 12 types of lies, but we're not done yet. I want to thank everybody who's here with me thus far. This is episode number 64 of Audit Bites. We're talking about 5 reasons audit clients lie. And if you missed the first half, what we talked about were the 12 different types of lies that we can see in the workplace. Let me ask you all a question. Of the 12 different types of lies, I got to figure out how I want to ask this. Which one annoys you the most? Of the 12 different types of lies that we just went over, which one annoys you the absolute most? Now, I'm going to answer that question too. And while I answer it, I'll give you guys some time to let me know which one is which one, not your favorite, which one annoys you the most. I think right now at this point, I would have to say that half truths annoy me the most, because when you're trying to figure out something and you're asking people for information and they give you half the story, and then you start going down a certain path and in a certain direction based on that half truth, and then you go and you ask a few more questions and you get more information, and you just think to yourself, why couldn't you just tell me this to begin with? It starts to get extremely annoying. So the one that annoys me the most is half truths. So Shafundu, Don, Clarence, Marsha, which one of the 12 types of lies annoys you the most? Because next we're going to talk about why our audit clients actually lie. Okay, so I've got a LinkedIn user here. Let me refer to my other screen and see if I can figure out who the LinkedIn user is, because I really would like to know now. Heck, it's not popping up on my cheat sheet either on my other screen, second monitor. Uh, okay. I know who that is. That's my man, Don Mingus. Hey, Don. Good to see you, man. Don says half truths and misleading. Those are the two types of lies that annoy Don the most. Now, Marsha is saying half truths and deflection. Yeah, deflection is a big one, because when people deflect, they can have you thinking that you are crazy. You'll be sitting there saying something to them and they'll say, no, that never happened. I didn't do that. This person did that. And you start questioning your own sanity initially until you get all the facts together and you really look at them, and then you realize that it wasn't you, it was them all along. So let's talk about why our audit clients lie. Reason number one is a lack of understanding. A lack of understanding. So let's talk about a lack of understanding. Audit clients lie for a variety of reasons. Lack of understanding is first on our list. Maybe, just maybe, they misunderstand the audit process, or maybe they misunderstood the questions that we were asking them. Either way, they believe that lying will protect them or the organization. For example, picture a client telling an auditor that, well, the inventory records, there's nothing wrong with them. Everything is as it should be. Not realizing that the auditor is going to ask for additional evidence if something looks wrong. You see, clients may lie because they don't understand the audit process. They don't understand that we will ask for follow-up information. So, the first reason that audit clients lie to us is a lack of understanding. Sometimes we could be confusing them by the questions that we're asking. Sometimes they may not understand that following up and getting to the truth is, well, kind of our job. Have you ever had this happen to you before? You ever had a client lie to you because they just kind of did not understand something? So now, we're talking about the 5 reasons audit clients lie. Reason number 2 is pressure from supervisors. Being instructed or pressured by higher ups to withhold information or mislead auditors is a big problem. I remember reading about the WorldCom collapse back in the day. Now, for those of you who don't know what WorldCom is, it was a very large telecom company. It crashed around 2002, and it was an $11 billion company when it crashed. But the fraud involved several individuals in the organization, and when reading books and watching documentaries on it, many of them said that they got involved in the fraud and they were pressured by management to make false journal entries or to cover up the fact that false journal entries were made. So, pressure from supervisors can lead clients to lie to us as auditors. And now I found that when you find that this is happening, it is up to us to try and, well, first get the truth, but also advocate for that client telling the absolute truth. I've been in some sticky situations when people have provided me with evidence of wrongdoing in organizations, and they've sworn me to secrecy because they feared for their livelihood. That happens a lot, but I really commend those individuals because under pressure, they still chose truth instead of lie. Now, I've been at some organizations where people double down on the lies and began deflecting, began denying, began lying all over the place. But another reason that our clients lie is because of pressure from supervisors. The third reason our clients lie is fear of repercussions based on that pressure from those supervisors, right? Concerns about punitive actions from management or loss of trust if the issues are revealed is another reason that our audit clients lie. One example is this company called Away. It was a suitcase company that faced allegations regarding its workplace culture, particularly in relation to its founder, Steph Corey. You see, some former employees have described experiences with her that they interpret as bullying. For example, she would provide aggressive feedback to them. She practiced public shaming whenever someone did something wrong, and they said that overall she had unreasonable expectations. And so within that company, they often lied to her for the fear of repercussions of facing her wrath. So for auditors, when we're in organizations where it looks like the culture is corrupt, you best believe that some people may actually lie because they fear the repercussions that may come from their boss. This is why I say it's so important for us to understand and evaluate cultural issues within organizations. So audit clients will lie to us. They will lie to us for a variety of reasons. And so the fourth reason that audit clients might lie to us is to maintain their reputation. It may be done to protect their personal or the organizational reputation from damage due to negativity. Now, at this point, I believe that it's probably safe to say that many of us have heard about the Boeing incident. We do understand that they lied based on the evidence that has come forth about the quality and the structure of their planes. But what really sickened me the most was some of the internal messages via email or Slack or whatever messaging channel that they were using, where people were bragging about how they had essentially faked out the FAA, the Federal Aviation Authority. So they knew that they were lying, but they also understood that lying maintained the reputation of the organization. Now, here's the thing, that only works temporarily, because once found out, what are you going to do? Obviously, lying is a short term benefit with a long term detriment. Just look at some of the things that are coming forward now in, well, pop culture in the US. Look at some of the things that are coming forward after many, many years of being concealed and many, many years of concealing people's reputation. Now, Marsha says Boeing is a big one. Oh, God, Marsha, have you read the messages? Have you gone through some of the documents that have come out? It is amazing the cover up job that was done. Okay, so if you are just joining us, you are on episode number 64 of Audit Bites, and I thank you for joining me. We're not done yet. Here's what I want to ask you all to do. If you like this podcast, refer your friends to it. We're on LinkedIn, we're also on YouTube, and we're also on your favorite podcasting platforms. While you're on your favorite podcasting platforms, go leave us a 5-star review. I think we're worth it. We give you a lot of really good free information. Now, here's another surprise that I have for you all. Next Friday, go to my website, thatauditguy.com, and you will see this podcast episode loaded for a short period of time as a free CPE. We're slowly loading past episodes as well. They aren't free, but you'll find that the cost is very reasonable as well. So do me a favor. If you like this podcast, go over to the Apple store, give me a 5-star review, go to Spotify, do the same thing. That's only if you like it, because we'd hate for you to lie about liking it, especially on a podcast where we're talking about lies, right? So, all right. With that said, we have just been talking about the 5 reasons that audit clients lie to you. And reason number 1 was a lack of understanding. Maybe they didn't understand the audit process. Maybe they didn't understand the questions that you asked them. Reason number 2 was pressure from superiors. Let's not be fooled. Just because we are auditors and we kind of like to trust facts, data, and statistics, people will lie to us for various reasons, and sometimes it's outside pressure to perform. The third reason is fear of repercussions. Fear of repercussions directly from the people who put the pressure on them to tell the lie to begin with. Or it might be fear of repercussions from their family if they lose their job. What might happen to them then? The fourth reason was maintaining a reputation. We all like to have our good name intact, and we hate when it's tarnished. People will lie to tarnish our good name and our good reputation, and it can, in certain instances, take years to build back. Sometimes people never build back their good reputation once it's gone. We've seen that happen recently too. Now, Marsha says, I'd love to see auditing of politicians' campaign speeches versus when they get into office and see how many lies they told on the campaign trail. Yeah, you know what, Marsha? There are some people who actually do something similar, not quite this. I would love to see this too. But there are some people who, when there are debates going on, they do live fact checks of what the politicians are saying during the debates to let you know who's lying and who's being honest. Those are always fun, and it's usually um, um, political talking heads that you can find on YouTube or the YouTube alternative Rumble. So watch out for those this election season, because you always get really, really, really good information when watching those types of shows. Okay, now I'm going to get to number 5, but I also want you to stick around because I have a bonus, maybe two bonuses. Nope, just one bonus. So, number five, the fifth reason that audit clients lie to you is because they are avoiding the detection of the fraud that they are actively either committing and or participating in and or are aware of and protecting someone else. Now, this one is a really interesting one. I'll tell you guys a story. I hadn't told many stories in this episode of the podcast. I told one in the beginning. And if you missed the story in the beginning, you guys tell them how good that story was and how much they should go back and listen to it. Don't give it away. But if you thought it was a good story, just type good story in the chat for me. But I'm going to tell you another one about this one, avoiding detection of fraud. So, I was a chief auditor at this one organization, and we were looking at purchasing cards. And I had just started using the idea data analytics software to kind of parse through, thousands, tens of thousands of records of data. And I got a hit. This one thing just looked really, really interesting. So as we were combing through all this data, one person had transactions that just looked extremely suspicious. So, for example, she was doing a lot of purchases at gas stations and they were whole dollar amounts, like $50 here, $25 there. And that didn't make any sense. Like if you were purchasing gas, you purposely got it on the dot at numbers that either ended in 0 or 5. It just seemed a little suspicious. Now, I'll tell you what she was doing in a minute, but there were some other purchases at the grocery store, and we had level 3 data where you could see exactly what people were getting. She was getting things like chewing gum and cigarettes, of all things, on the company's purchasing card. And I'm looking at this level 3 data and I'm like, this ain't right. Something is wrong. So I decide to go and ask a few questions to the office assistant. And so I started asking the office assistant questions, and she started doing the whole deflection. She said, "Oh, no, she's a stellar employee. You don't need to look at her stuff. I'm sure everything that she has is probably pretty good." And so I look at the office assistant. Her name was Roz, and I said, "Roz, nah, she's not a good employee. Look at some of the things that she's buying." And I started running through the list with Roz, and I said, "These are purchases that are not allowed on the company's purchasing card." And Roz still kept trying to convince me. She started using some of the different types of lies to convince me to not look at the young woman's stuff. And I said, "Okay, Roz, there's something wrong and there's something going on. And I know you're lying to me. I don't know what about, and I don't know why, but I need to go and talk to your boss now to try and figure this out." And now, as soon as I said that, Roz was like, "No, no, 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 wait, stop." I'm like, "Stop? Are you in on it with her? Like, what, what is going on?" So apparently, now Marsha's guessing already. Marsha said she was buying it for Roz. She wasn't, not this time. You're going to be surprised when I tell you what had happened. So Roz was the assistant, and Roz would actually reconcile the purchasing card transactions for everyone. Seeing what was happening with her purchasing card, Roz had already confronted the woman, and the woman confessed to everything, but she begged Roz not to tell anyone. And Roz was like, "Well, I gotta tell people because this is my job and I don't want to lose my job." So Roz made her sign a promissory note, and she had promised to pay in a certain period of time. And Roz gave me the promissory note, and I was sitting there reading it and skimming through it. And what I had noticed was the time within which she had promised to pay it back had already passed. And I said, "Roz, you do realize that she first stole from the company, but then she wrote a promissory note to pay it back, and the time period within which she promised to pay it back has passed as well. And so Ross was just like, yeah, I realize that, but I just don't want her to get into any trouble. And so I said, okay, Ross, let me get a good understanding here. Somehow, this woman has touched you enough to where you lied to her about a theft, about a crime, and you put your job on the line for her. So why would you do something like that? I never got a straight answer from Roz about that, but I found it very odd that she went through all of that to protect someone and to conceal a fraud. Now it got even more interesting because I took all the evidence to the VP over the area, and he and I had several conversations and we talked about it. And he said, well, listen, can you do me a favor? Like, sure. I mean, I can't arrest her. I'm not the police, but I can hand the evidence over to the police. And he said, can you just question her and find out why she did this? The supervisor, his feelings were really, really hurt because he had handpicked everyone in his department, and he was just really upset. And I asked him, well, why? Like, is that going to do any good for the fact that she stole? And he said, I just need to know. I'm just very, very curious. I just need to know. So I said, okay. I agreed to talk to the young woman who was stealing from the organization to try and find out why she was stealing. And here's where the story takes an even crazier twist. I get in a room with the young lady and I start off by asking her, hey, you've been making some very interesting purchasing card purchases. Can you at least tell me why? I didn't even go through the process of, trying to get her to admit that she had done it or any of that. I just went straight to it because the evidence was so overwhelming that we just knew that she had done it. So I said, why did you do it? She began to deflect. She didn't deny doing it, but she said, listen, there's a job opening in our department that pays $20,000 more than I'm making now. She said, I'm currently interviewing for this job, and when I get the job, I'm going to pay back all of the money. Now, at this point, it took everything within me to not just laugh. And so I just needed to regurgitate back to her what she had just said to me. And so I said to her, so listen, you have essentially stolen some things on your purchasing card. And now that we're asking you about the theft that has occurred, you're telling me that there's an open position in your office, which would be a promotion, and that you are now interviewing for that job, and that you feel confident enough, even knowing that your boss knows that you were stealing. You feel confident enough that you're going to get this job, get this promotion, and then pay back the money that you stole. Can anyone guess what she said? And while you all are guessing what she said, Marsha says, now that's confidence, right? That's some real confidence. Now, while you all are guessing, I'm going to go to the bonus reason that clients lie, and then I'll come back and finish the story up. But the bonus here is people, audit clients specifically, will lie to you to avoid internal conflicts. Look, no one likes conflict. Let's be honest. But some people will lie, cheat, and steal to avoid them. So, the question that I've asked you all, what do you think happened? Oh, wait, what was the question I asked? I forgot I forgot the question that I just asked you all that I said we were going to follow up on. Um, I know what it was. What do you think she did next? What do you think this young lady did next? So now, if you're just joining us, this is episode number 64 of Audit Bites. 5 reasons audit clients lie. And we actually gave you a bonus reason as well. I just told everyone a story about a young lady who, well, just lied big time to conceal a fraud. And she brought in the office assistant to help with that lie as well. It had a somewhat of a surprise ending. Go back and listen to the episode if you are just joining us. Now, Marsha says she thinks that she left the company. Marsha, she was so confident, she actually showed up for the interview because the interview was the next day. She showed up for the interview. Now, when she showed up for the interview, because I had told her boss, I said, I think she's going to show up for this interview tomorrow. And he said, okay, we'll have a surprise for her. So when she showed up for the interview, she was terminated. So needless to say, she did not get the raise. She didn't get the raise to pay back the money that she had stolen from the company. Ooh, that's actually a really good guess, Marsha. Said that she signed the promissory note under duress. I never even thought about that as being an option even back then. I wonder what would have happened if she had done that. That's wow. That would have put a real wrinkle into it. So in my training courses, when I tell this story, I'm going to say, she said she signed a promissory note under duress, and then I'll tell the people that I'm just joking, that didn't happen. But just to see their reactions, that would have been the dumbest smart thing that she could have done, if that makes sense, right? The dumbest smart thing that she could have done. Wow, that's pretty interesting. That's very interesting. But no, she showed up for the job interview the next day, like I said. So you are absolutely right, Marsha. She did have a whole lot of confidence in her abilities. Okay, so now, thank you for joining me on episode number 64 of Audit Bites, 5 Reasons Internal Audit Clients Lie. I've said this twice throughout this program. If you like this podcast, spread it to anyone you know who is an auditor. It takes me a lot of time, effort, and energy to put these together, but I care about our profession and our community just that much. And plus, I have a doggone load of fun doing this. My last ask of you is, if you are in an audit department and you seek training, call me. We can get training for your entire audit department that is customized to your needs. You can go to my website, thatauditguy.com, or email me, rob@thatauditguy.com. Again, thank you all for joining me on this episode. We broadcast live every other week or on your favorite podcasting platforms. Tell all your friends. We'll see you at the next episode.
Thank you for watching this episode of Audit Bites. If you receive value from this podcast, do us a favor. First, tell other auditors. Second, give us a 5-star review. And finally, talk to Robert about training your auditors. Our contact information is on our website, www.thatauditguy.com. It's also where you will find our course catalog, on-demand courses, a kick butt blog, other podcasts, Robert's best-selling books, and last but not least, audit merch. That's right, we have audit hats, shirts, mugs, and more. Thanks for watching and listening. See you next episode.